Welcome back to the Grief Mentor podcast. This is your host, Teresa Davis. I have a question for you. Who are you now? After child loss, that question doesn't feel simple anymore, does it? You don't feel like the same person, the same mom, the roles you had, the relationships that you have, the way you see yourself in the mirror, all of it feels kind of shattered alongside your heart. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the identity crisis that comes after the funeral, why it feels like everything is unraveling, why even the simplest things feel different and foreign, and what it means to start discovering who you are now in this world that you have been thrust into. Friend, if you're carrying the weight of child loss and trying to survive a life that feels completely unrecognizable, I want to personally invite you to the Grief Mentor workshop. It's a free 3-day online experience created for grieving moms who are holding on to faith, even if that faith feels fragile right now. Inside this workshop, I'll walk you through why everything feels so heavy, how guilt and fear and doubt are shaping your thoughts, and how to begin rebuilding your life without letting go of your child. You don't have to pretend you're okay. You don't have to live in silence alone. This is a space where your grief is safe and your questions are welcome. To sign up for this online experience, there are 3 easy ways to join me in the Grief Mentor workshop. You can visit my website at thegriefmentor.com at the top of the page and hit the link to join me. Or you can visit the show notes of today's episode and find the link. Or if you're a Grief Mentor Insider, you can find the link right inside your email. And I would love to meet you there. Because living with hope and purpose doesn't mean forgetting. If you're grieving the death of your child and you want the steps that lead to believing with confidence that life is still worth living, then you're in the right place. Hello, I'm Teresa, a grief mentor. That's been where you are, and I teach grieving moms like you how to navigate life after child loss. If you're ready to take a step of courage and build a solid foundation to live with hope and purpose, then I'm here to teach you how. Are you ready for what God has for you? Then I'm ready to teach you. When your child dies, it just doesn't break your heart. It breaks your sense of self. You didn't just lose them. You lost the version of you that existed when they were still here. That is a piece of child loss that none of us knew was going to be part of the journey, right? We're struggling with this internal conflict of trying to figure out how to live. And then there's so much change going on inside of us that we can't even identify. I certainly couldn't. It took me a long time to figure out what was happening inside my heart and to be able to work through it so that I could teach you about it. You may find yourself asking questions like, who am I without them to care for? Because here's the truth, friend. Child loss at different ages carry different weights. If your child went to heaven when they were small, when you were still in that caregiver role, or if your child went to heaven because you were in a caregiver role because they needed that from you, either from sickness or illness or some sort of disability, that carries a whole new level of weight that adds that extra layer of grief. You know, you've heard me speak many times on the podcast about how grief has many layers, and all of our losses are unique, and it changes everything. Like for me personally, our loss was very sudden, here today, gone tomorrow. That carries a very unique type of grief with it, as well as a small child in your home that is no longer there, or a child that you have provided all their care for basically their whole life. So all of those factors add into the identity crisis that comes inside the world of child loss, right? We might say, well, what am I going to do with myself now? If I'm no longer needed by the one that's no longer here with me, what am I going to do? What's my life look like now? How do I keep going when everything I loved about my life now feels like it's no longer there? You find yourself completely lost in a sea of change that you can't even describe. Because grief doesn't just bring sadness, it brings disorientation. Because our identities are woven in with our children, when they're no longer walking beside us, that part of us is missing too. And here's what makes it even harder, right? The world expects you to go back to who you were. They just want that person back, right? Their friend, their wife, even their mom. They just want that same person to come back. But how do you go back? That's what we're going to talk about today. Something else happens when the identity crisis comes upon us, when we are thrust into this world of child loss, and that is our faith feels so unfamiliar. You might have felt confident in your prayers. Now you're not even sure what to say. You just sit in silence with tears dripping off your cheeks. Oh, friend, I have so much to say about that. In the devotion book that I wrote one that said, "Let the tears fall," because I believe that our tears are a love language, and they're calling out to God like a calling card that says, "I can't do this on my own." Tears are prayers, friend. You don't have to say a word. God knows your heart, right? What does the scripture tells us? That when we are not able to pray, that the Spirit intercedes for us. The groans that we have in our heart are heard, friend, even when we can't speak them. You may look like the same person on the outside, but inside, you don't recognize yourself anymore. And it's not just about your faith. It's really your whole life. What used to bring you joy now hurts. The things that you once loved and looked forward to, your hobbies and your routines, and maybe even some relationships, don't feel safe or comforting anymore. Your purpose used to be so clear. You knew who you were and who needed you. Now everything just feels so cloudy, and the path ahead doesn't make sense. And you're not even sure if you're still the person you used to be, or even if you still want to be. This is what the identity loss after child loss looks like, right? It's being awake in a world that doesn't feel like yours anymore, and wondering where this is going. You know, what is this the way my life is going to be? If you listen to the last podcast, we talked about the last two podcasts, actually, like what happens after the funeral. The one before that was, there's no finish line to this, right? There's no place on the calendar where you can look and say, well, it's all going to be over on this date. No. So then you're thrust into this world, and this feeling of uneasiness that seems like it's going to last forever can really take over your life. And that brings the anxiety, the panic attacks, all of it. Okay, so hear me. I want to give you a piece of information right now that's going to make you feel grounded again. Okay, here's what you need to focus on right now. If this is you, if everything I have said today so far in this episode is you, this is a piece of information that I want to give you. Now, we're going to go much deeper in this with the workshop, because identity crisis and child loss is a very big event, friends. And I'm not going to solve it for you in 15 minutes on a podcast. Now, in the one-on-ones, we can go much deeper with this. In the Grief Roadmap, we literally spend 12 weeks together working through all these issues. But what I'm going to provide for you inside the Grief Mentor Workshop is a way for you to be able to identify where you are in the identity crisis that comes with child loss. I'm going to have a workbook that's going to go really deep, that's going to be able to help you flesh out the things that are on your heart and mind. But for today, right now, this is what I want you to hear. This is what I want you to focus on, okay? The workshop starts August 11th. And if you haven't signed up for that, friend, I encourage you to do that today. But here's what I want you to focus on and walk away from our time together. The path forward for you begins when you learn and are able to name where you are right now. You see, that's the crux of what we do as grieving moms. We're in the past when our kid was with us. We're in the future when in fearing it, knowing that they're not going to be with us. Living in the present is just too darned painful. So nobody wants to do that. And I get it, friend, because I was there too. But this is what I want to teach you. If nothing feels familiar right now and you're struggling to understand who you are in this world that you didn't ask for, there's a way forward. But it doesn't happen by rushing to fix what you think is broken. It begins by pausing long enough to name what's changed. You see, that's what you're afraid of. You're afraid to be still long enough to be able to process what's going on in your heart and mind. You just want to keep moving. Keep moving. Because in your mind, you say, well, if I keep moving, that I don't have to feel this pain. And you know how I feel about that, right? We don't live in despair. That is not the answer. We learn to use healthy distractions. We learn to be able to manage our grief by working through what we need to do, getting our thoughts, okay? I talked a lot about that in the last couple of podcasts. Using God's word to put the spotlight on our thoughts, because until you do that, you're never going to reach a place where you can live in this world that's taken over your life. And that's just a fact, friend. It is a fact. I'm 6 years into my journey, and I am a testament to that. But right now, what I want you to think about is pausing long enough to figure out where you are right now. Okay? Just to give you an idea of what we're going to talk about in the workshop, there are 3 distinct phases of identity crisis after child loss. Number 1, who you were before your child left your side. Number 2, who you are now. Different people. Yeah. I see your head nodding, even though I'm not in the same room with you, because I've walked in your shoes. Now, the third piece of that can be the most challenging to us. You might think who you were before and who you are now is most challenging. And it is. It's all very challenging. But who you are becoming, that's number 3. And that's what I want to help you with, friend. We're going to talk about all 3 of those inside the workshop. But here's what I want you to take away from today's episode, because I want you to have something to hold on to. You don't have to go back to find your old self again. Because that's what we want, right? We want things to feel good again. And then there's that conflict. Well, how will things ever feel good again? Because my child's not here. So if I reach a place where things feel good again, I'm betraying my kid. So there's this internal conflict. It's a war going on inside of you all the time, because you're trying to manage all of these identity shifts and you're not even able to name them. Well, friend, that's what we're going to do in the grief workshop. I'm going to help you identify these phases and be able to really focus on you and the steps that you need to be able to embrace, to be able to see yourself as you are right now and what your future looks like. Because that's what we're all afraid of, right? Is our future. The path forward begins by making space to discover who you are right now. Because until you work through who she is, you're not going to be able to move on to the next step. Got to figure that out first. Who are you right now with your grief, with your faith? And this is the most important part, friend. And this is really, really hard, especially if you're in the early stages of grief. Because what I want to teach you is that your child's memory is going to always be tethered to your heart. But if you're in the early stages of grief, the fact that I said your child's memory makes you want to go hug the white pony, right? Because we don't want to refer to our child as a memory. And I get that. I totally understand that. I was there. Even the sound of that made me angry. I was one of those people that couldn't look at pictures. Because that's a memory, right? And there's not going to be any more. And you've probably heard me share about this on the podcast before. Once I moved out of that phase, then I went into this kind of crazy manic phase where I just went to Walmart and I just started printing every picture that I could find with Andrew in it. And then I got home, and after a few trips to Walmart and the pictures began to stack up, I began to realize I had absolutely no way of displaying those. What am I doing? But that was my heart trying to keep Andrew's memory alive, because at that phase, and I heard someone say it in the last free monthly support group that I had. I heard someone say, "I'm afraid I'm going to forget my kid." And when she said that, my heart just broke for her, because I remember that exactly. That's why I did what I did. That's why I came home from Walmart and had stacks and rows of pictures that I had absolutely no way to display. That is a phase we go through, friend, and it's normal. But hear me now, hear me. You are never going to forget your kid. This kid grew inside of your body. You planned for them. You birthed this child. You are never going to forget your kid, okay? But I will encourage you that those pictures, even if you struggled with them just like me, those pictures will one day make you smile. So keep this in mind. Stop struggling to go back to who you were before, when all was well in the world, because you're not going to go back to that girl. Okay? And I don't want that to discourage you, but I want you to see something. In this process of identity shifts, we begin to learn more about ourselves than we ever knew before. You are stronger than you think you are. You have more grit, as my dad used to say, than you realize, because you keep showing up. And friend, that is not weakness. You just keep showing up. You're confused, you're disoriented, you don't know what your next step is, but you keep showing up. God sees that step of faith. Yeah, and that's a step of faith. Maybe you don't even realize that. The fact that you keep showing up. The fact that you keep listening to this podcast, because you know when you turn me on that you're going to hear about the Word of God. So if you don't want that, you're not going to be here listening to me, because He is my anchor. He is my lifeline. He is the only reason that I can sit here behind this microphone and share my heart with you, friend. Because I've worked through all these things that I'm trying to teach you to have the ability to do. So it's not about going back to that girl. I want you to hear me, though. God will shape and mold you into the person that He is calling you to be. Now, that may feel painful to you. That may feel like, well, I'm never going to become somebody new because that means I'm leaving my kid behind. Oh, no, friend. No. We're not leaving our children behind. We're taking them with us. With all the things that I'm going to teach you, you're going to learn to be able to do that without the fear of leaving them behind. I know this is a life you didn't want. You may not even recognize the woman staring back at you in the mirror. But what I hope to remind you today is this. You're still there. You're being shaped and molded in the potter's wheel. You're being refined by fire, being shaped by deep love and deep sorrow. But here's the truth. God is not finished writing your story, friend. Come to the Grief Mentor Workshop. I hope to see you there. We're going to walk through these layers together, one step at a time. And I want to leave you with this. Do not be afraid, for I have ransomed you. I have called you by name, and you are mine. Isaiah 43:11. Friend, that makes me weep, because He knows your name, even though you might feel nameless right now. He knows your name. He knows your heart, and He's walking in this pain with you. I pray that you just reach out to Him and let Him know your heart. You see, my name is still Teresa. And God is taking who I was before and who I was in the worst part of my grief. And He's created a heart inside of me with compassion and a deeper love than I knew possible. To love my family with all of my heart. And to love Him in a way I never loved Him before. And then He created inside of me. He took my purpose that He created me for, and He has refined it and brought it to a place where I can serve Him so I can serve you. Join me in the Grief Mentor Workshop. Find the link in your show notes. Go to my website. It's at the very top banner. All you have to do is hit the Join Me button. I hope to see you there. And that is all I have for you today. So until next time, take care.